Hey everyone, hola a todos. Big ups to Feliciano and the fellows who are on this call and who presented on Wednesday. So my name is Lina Blanco. I'm the Communications and Cultural Strategist at the North Bay Organizing Project. And if you don't know where that is, so Sonoma County, California, and if you don't know where that is, we're based an hour and a half north of Oakland and San Francisco in California. So NBOP is a grassroots, multiracial, multi-issue org of over 20 environmental, labor, student, and community-based organizations in Sonoma County. We train leaders from front lines and impacted communities to change the conditions of their lives for the better. We organize to change structural causes of economic, social, and environmental inequities. We organize tenants, and we organize immigrant folks, and we confronting these inequities that working people face in our county. We deepen civic engagement of the new American majority through deep democracy, and we develop new systems of mutual aid, like Undocu Fund, for a just recovery for our people to thrive in our community. So if you've heard of Sonoma County, perhaps you picture the rolling hills of peaceful wine country. But just under that surface of that shiny marketed images are vast disparities in housing, income inequality, and exploitation of the land and people who live here. And our communities most recently in the last 5 years have been reshaped by catastrophic wildfires of 2017, 2019, and 2020 that claimed housing stock of our communities and really drove up rents. And we know that these climate disasters and public health emergencies like COVID always exacerbate systemic inequality for working class folks, immigrants, and people of color. When thinking about the tool for the National Equity Atlas, I wanted to create something we can leverage for a campaign we're running this year to pass stronger renter protections that include county-wide just cause and disaster-triggered tenant protections. So some of these questions that I asked were, how have rents really increased across 5 years of climate disasters? And where are the areas that are most rent burdened and who lives there? And which neighborhoods are facing the highest rate of evictions in Sonoma County communities? And I think some of those long-term questions we are always asking ourselves as an org is like, what opportunities do we see for base building when we really map the communities that we're working in and organizing in? And then also, as I'll talk about more, like what data do we know of the specific renter conditions in specific county supervisor districts as we power map these decision makers for this campaign? And so this is the audience ecosystem that I'm often thinking about. We created this with the Equity Atlas. I think for this tool, and I know for this tool, I prioritize two key audiences, and that's the grassroots partners and coalition, but also key elected officials. And so on the next slide, we'll drill down into why and a little bit more about them. So again, we are a leader-led organization. We are a coalition. My core audience are those folks who are who are experiencing the impacts firsthand. And I really wanted this tool to embolden and agitate folks to tie their lived experiences, like we have the data, we know our stories, and also what will county officials look at? How can we tie our experiences to the data? So I wanted to show hotspots of disparities across major local historic events in our community by zip code and county. My second core audience are these decision makers on this particular issue. So for us, it's our Sonoma County Board of Supervisors and county staff. And we don't want them to take pity on our people. That's not the point. We want them to pass a local package of stronger renter protections that include just cause, but also emergency or disaster triggered protections. And we want them to understand how their district actually fares in terms of renter disparities. And honestly, we want to really heighten the contradiction and the tension on specific decision-making targets. So for example, like Supervisor Gore, did you know that 56% of renters in your district are rent burdened? Or Did you know that 80 renter households were evicted from their homes immediately after the 2017 wildfires? And so for this data, I disaggregated it by zip code and county district. And why zip code? Partially because the eviction data that came to us, thanks to Legal Aid of Sonoma County's good work of public record requests, came to us by zip codes. But we were able to tie zip codes to county districts to really heighten that tension on the specific decision-making targets. And I think something that's important for us is that we have a gap in the data here. We don't have a rental registry right now, so it's very hard to track evictions. And this is something that the tenant protection package that we're pushing could change. Um, and so I also focus on race and ethnicity of renters in particular, rent burden on renters, and the median costs of rent over the last 6 years. And something that the tool that I hope to do in the coming months is continue to map the wildfire kind of shape files, which I'll tell you more about, to really show where our housing has been lost. So this is a first look at the tool. Um, this So what we see here is a dashboard disaggregated by zip code and county district. Uh, People are able to search their zip code, and once they search their zip code, the specific zip code will pop up for the supervisor district. It will show race and ethnicity of the people who live there, and it will also show how many evictions, both unlawful detainers or where the legal court paperwork that a landlord puts into the court system to start an eviction, as well as the worst case scenario of sheriff lockouts. So here's a look of it in action. So when people are using it, this is kind of what pops up for folks. You can see it change based on the district. As you hover, you see the race and ethnicity of the areas, how many evictions have been filed. The bottom right really shows the rent burden that that specific zip code is facing, as well as their supervisor and district. So this next slide, the second part of my tool is kind of on the front lines, how it's like to be a renter on the front lines of climate crisis in Sonoma County. And so I really wanted to show the increasing rental costs and eviction data over 5 years of wildfires. I'm still working on layering the fires. Right now, we see the 2020 LNU Lightning Complex fire, but the Tubbs fire in 2017 and the Sonoma Complex fires have not yet been included, nor the 2019 Kincaid fire, which is kind of what you're looking at is between those two yellow splotches. It claimed a lot of our housing stock and devastated the community of Coffee Park in Sonoma County. And I think some key takeaways from this dashboard are that one, median rents have soared by 20% in Sonoma County over the last 5 years. And eviction moratoriums, as you see in the bottom right, in 2020, they worked. They kept people in their homes. And so tenants fought for those and they won, and stronger just cause can keep more people in their homes, and that's why we need it. And then also kind of long-term data. If you look at that kind of core center in the middle of the darkest green, those are communities of mostly Santa Rosa, but also Roseland and Southwest Santa Rosa that are predominantly, there are more immigrants who live in these communities, folks who are either working in the fields or low income jobs, low wage jobs. And that's where the highest number of evictions are happening. It's also where this biggest rent burden is. And it's also where there's no fires, right? And so we're saying, and I want a tool to show this, that as future fires claim our housing stock in the wildland urban interface, those areas that are a little less densely populated, um, how will our communities like Roseland or Southwest Santa Rosa fare as more folks are displaced by climate change and fires? Will they be displaced? We believe that they run the risk of displacement without stronger protections. So when thinking about this tool, I really wanted to start with a story. I want us to share the story of our organizing work for a just recovery from our immigrant defense work and also our tenant um, organizing that we do. I wanted it to be participatory and include a how to use section and allow folks to explore a variety of ways, whether it's clicking on shapes or searching by their zip code. Again, we want to center solutions. So I want to include our policy platform with this so the folks know what our demands are. And as an org, we uphold language justice as a kind of core of our values, and we will plan to translate this for our base of Spanish speaker members and community leaders. And this year, we have an immediate opportunity to leverage this data in May when the Board of Supervisors considers a package for stronger renter protections at the county level. But I also want to use the findings in our scripts for canvassing and door knocking and enhancing our narrative work on social media and agitating folks to action when they join our campaign. I do want to go deeper with the data, especially looking at fire risk of our communities, adding in fires from 2017 and 2019, and incorporate more storytelling into this data. So as for reflections, Tableau is a tool that many of us learn for the first time. It is tricky. And I was trying to get it to connect with Esri, which is pulling map data from ArcGIS, and it was really hard and it wasn't working. So I also hit a wall of I hit a wall and I really wanted to give up sometimes, and the data was overwhelming at times. But I think prioritizing data, even when it's not in your role, is really important because it makes the narrative work more powerful and it makes the organizing work more powerful. So kind of my advice and lessons learned is don't try to go at things by yourself. It's always better with a group think. Keep your data organized, get to know it, get inspired by others' projects. People are making incredible things. You'll hear more amazing things in this presentation, in this session, and then don't stop doing data walks. Is a practice we learned at the National Equity Atlas of asking questions of the data with a group of folks who may be unfamiliar with it, and their questions can inform your tools.